What's up guys, the Chad Champ here, and I thought I'd just shoot out a quick video covering the most current Hulk news, and some brief scaling alongside it. The most standout news at the moment is definitely the announcement of the second act of Phillip Kennedy Johnson's Incredible Hulk run, which will swap the incredible adjective for infernal, as after Hulk's fight with Eldest for the third time, he's going to end up getting possessed by the firstborn of the Mother of Horrors, and this time, she'll unfortunately be successful. This will end in her releasing the Mother of Horrors upon the Marvel Universe, and Eldest leading an all-out war in order to usher in a new age of monsters. Now, Hulk getting possessed isn't really anything new. It's happened before, like in the pages of the Incredible Hulk Volume 1 issue 370, or Incredible Hulk Volume 3 59. And even in the alternate future presented to us in Immortal Hulk issue 25, where we see how the One Below All had hollowed out Hulk's body and used him to become the Breaker of Worlds. While all of these followed the same core concept, they all played out in unique ways, or never at all, looking at you Toba Hulk. We've also seen Hulk's appearance corrupted into an infernal variation before, but this was an alternate Hulk, who split from Banner and was sent to Hell, where the landscape warped and corrupted his body until he was a truly demonic presence. However, none of these have had massive ramifications on the Marvel Universe in its present form, and were usually contained to Hulk's own series, but now that looks to change with this new iteration of the Jade Giant, or in this case, the Purple Peculiar, as the Eldest will successfully possess Hulk's body and separate Banner from his rage-filled alter ego, making him powerless and allowing Eldest to walk the earth in the body of the strongest creature to ever walk the planet. That's not all, of course. As I mentioned earlier, Eldest will also unleash the Mother of Horrors, a primordial being that was the genesis of all monsters, at least on Earth. She's one of the only beings to have formed in the Marvel Universe without Toa having been responsible and without his knowledge, which remained true until she spawned Brother Deep, who was made in the image of Marvel's creator as a way of mocking him out of an act of hatred. And once upon seeing said mockery, Toa turned into Toba for the first time and experienced rage for the first time. One of the key themes of this ongoing run is how Hulk has actively been trying to stop being a hero and just wants to be left alone. But we also constantly see that he can't stop getting into situations that end up with him performing acts of heroism, whether it be constantly saving his newest companion, Charlie Tidwell, or heeding the call from the Mind Stone and fighting Thanos to prevent another Infinity Gauntlet situation. Though I think the most standout example for me is how he responds to Strange's SOS message during the events of Thanos Volume 4, where he showed up and not only helped the Illuminati, but also attempted to save Thanos himself from the abstract entity Mistress Death. We know that Hulk has some pretty big history with most of the characters involved here, with 3 out of the 5 Illuminati members present having been responsible for his time on Sakaar, or how Thanos has repeatedly tried to take over the cosmos, so Hulk really didn't have any obligation to help them at all. Now, while he did claim he helped the secret group of heroes out of spite for Thanos, it was still ultimately an act of heroism, whether direct or not. To me, he's the ultimate reluctant hero. He both wants to be left alone, but also wants to be surrounded by people he can trust and call friends. There are countless examples of this, from him basically adopting his most recent friend, Charlie, to back when he and Thor officially became proper friends after bonding over the defeat of Red Hulk. Though, that didn't last very long. Though this side of Hulk is probably best showcased in Hulk Grey by Jeff Loeb, which fits in between Hulk's original time in his grey form and when he donned the green skin. In issue 5, we see how conflicted Hulk's anger makes his behaviour and relationships. His desire for affection is impacted by his appearance and instinctual behaviour, which in turn causes him to act out in anger and violence, and he's attacked as a result, thus resulting in this endless cycle of Hulk being denied what he wants most. However, Hulk has seemingly just become more spiteful of Banner over the course of this run, and while I think his initial hatred towards Bruce was justified based on the events from Donny Cates's run, he's now gone from just wanting domination over their shared body to brutally locking Bruce away in his warped version of the Mindscape. That, paired with Charlie's departure in issue 26, may very well pave the way to Hulk even willingly joining Eldest out of pure spite, similar to how MCU Hulk apparently refused to show up in Infinity War out of spite because he was sick to death of being used for nothing but fighting. As mentioned by Phillip Kennedy Johnson, the Infernal Hulk run is only the second act of a trilogy, and he said that Charlie will return in the future, so there's definitely room for Hulk to regret his decision and realise his wrongdoings, though that depends if my prediction here has any weight at all. As for the scaling implications of this new run, we're told that it will introduce newer monsters that are both bigger and stronger than Hulk himself, and whose existence goes back to the primordial era of Earth itself. So, we're likely getting into more Elder God territory, with characters like Chthon, Set, Gaia, potentially all being metrics for the scaling. However, the writer also compared the scope of the second act to the King in Black event.
If I had to compare it to one other thing that Marvel has done, the closest comparison I can think of would be the King in Black event, where it tied a bunch of different things together and like it kind of affected everything else that's coming. It's like that level.
So, Hulk may very well take on powerhouses like Scarlet Witch, Jean Grey, and Thor again. Phillip Kennedy Johnson has actually already said that he wants to see Thor appear again in the future, and was the one to properly establish that Thor and Hulk fighting is practically a universal constant at this point. Something that makes sense to me at least, especially being as they are technically both sons of Gaia, with the Elder Goddess actually holding Hulk in a higher regard than that of the God of Thunder. At this point though, that statement shouldn't be too surprising, because if we apply the law established in Immortal Hulk, then the gamut that runs through Hulk's very being would make him as much as a divine being as Thor, if not more. Being as Banner will be separated from Hulk too, we may finally see him return to making unique gadgets and weapons to even the odds, something he hasn't really done since Hulk Volume 2. You see, back when Hawkeye shot Banner through the head in Civil War 2, while he did eventually resurrect through the Green Door, Banner does note that he was no longer as smart as he was beforehand. He can no longer make some of his greatest inventions and showcases of intelligence, such as teleporters, a force field that runs on radiation and the old power, and a gun that absorbs and fires the two mentioned energy forms. This would be a much preferred return to form for Bruce, in my opinion, as his recent stories are focused more on feats of emotional intelligence and self-discipline, instead of what allows him to be considered one of the most premier minds on Earth. In other news, we have Hulk's appearance in the current New Avengers run, where he got jumped by the team so they could extract data from Bruce. He honestly got done dirty here, where we see Extra and 3 of all people drop him. Though she does do so with adamantium claws, and she was at one point stated to be more surgical and patient than her dad when it came to fighting, so her putting up more of an impressive, albeit brief performance is fine. Plus, Namor does say this. Next up, we have Hulk's role in the Imperial event, where he's returned to his role as King of Sakaar for a time. While he initially did so to pay respect to Hirokala, one of his two sons, he ended up being pulled into a galactic war between many of the intergalactic communities and cultures, with Hulk already having a brief scrap with T'Challa in issue 2 of the main run. However, they will seemingly clash again, as Black Panther is having his own tie-in, where the synopsis does say that he'll be fighting Cho and Hulk, though this could just end up being an extended version of the fight we saw from issue 2. We'll also see a return to Sakaar in October, as Greg Pak gives us a look into a previously unseen chapter of Hulk's time on the original Sakaar, which will be set right after he broke free from the Red King's arena. This comic will also act as a celebratory issue for the 20th anniversary of the Planet Hulk storyline, and that honestly has me interested to see if Pak would finally show us the fight between Hulk and Black Bolt for the 20th anniversary of World War Hulk, which is something he's mentioned he'd like to cover in a one-shot. Then, in November, DC and Marvel will finally reunite in the comic crossover that primarily focuses on Batman meeting Deadpool, but will also contain other crossovers like Nightwing X-23, Doctor Strange Constantine, and Harley Quinn Hulk. Now hear me out, this probably won't be so bad if written right, considering both are two victims of psychological abuse that resulted in them becoming liabilities to society, with Quinn also being a psychologist, so mixing her professional background and current lifestyle may give her a unique insight into Hulk's mind. But if the cover art is anything to go by, it's probably just going to be this. We'll also see Hulk join the fray against Godzilla in issue 3 of Godzilla vs. the Marvel Universe, and based on the synopsis, he'll be the most notable member of the superpowered community to face off against the King of Monsters. At least by issue 4, as the fight will carry over. Unlike the wrongly named Godzilla vs. Hulk one-shot, there actually will be a fight, so it's not clickbait, and the reason why the author didn't have the two radioactive beings fight in that issue was so he could save it for this comic run. I will say though, can Marvel stop with this weird obsession with having their gallery of characters just getting folded when it comes to crossovers or Elseworlds? Aliens vs Avengers, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, Predator kills the Marvel Universe, Marvel Zombies, Marvel Ruins. Time and time again, Marvel just allows their IPs to be on the end of the most one-sided beatdowns possible, and have no issue also exposing them to the most horrific fates possible. I mean, just look at this. Godzilla reappearing properly after almost 50 years is the most recent version of this, and I will say that I'm not particularly surprised, as the King of the Monsters may very well be the single most glazed character when it comes to intercompany crossovers, which is something my buddy Crisis covered a while back. Speaking of Godzilla and Hulk, I would like to briefly talk about the upcoming death battle between the two, and that I won't be doing a video on it personally, at least not in the form of a prediction or covering the matchup myself, but I will be appearing on a friend's channel to give some brief scaling for Hulk, so go subscribe to him if you haven't. While I won't be covering the matchup beforehand, if Death Battle decides to make blatantly false statements or go down strange lines of logic for the scaling, like with their Broly vs Hulk video, I probably will address my gripes with their takes, maybe in a live stream, maybe in an actual video, but we'll see. As for other members of the Hulk family, we also have one other tie-in for the Imperial event releasing at the end of the month, which will focus on She-Hulk after she was appointed Monarch of New Sakaar to keep the peace between its volatile inhabitants. As per writer Stephanie Phillips, the one-shot will spark the beginning of a storyline that will have a similar premise to Game of Thrones, where there will be conflicts sparked out of disagreement of who should be succeeding Hirokala as ruler of New Sakaar, being as the son of Hulk seemingly didn't have any children. Now, out of the 3 Hulks that ventured to the gladiatorial planet, she's definitely the most appropriate choice for the job, as not only is she strong, but she's also a solid debater due to her background in law and being one of the most premier lawyers of the Marvel Universe. Whereas Hulk is far too volatile, and Cho's cocky nature would be counterproductive in an environment like New Sakaar. This will eventually lead to Jen's own spin-off on Sakaar dubbed Planet She-Hulk, and will have her face against a variety of natives on the planet, such as witches, cannibals and rebels, which again really emphasises the similarities to Game of Thrones, which I do think it could be a super good run if approached properly. We also have Scar appearing in Death of the Silver Surfer, where he was touted as the second strongest alien on Earth after Silver Surfer himself. This comic is apparently very much in continuity according to writer Greg Pak, and while Scar would get a scaling above someone like Captain Marvel from the aforementioned statement, it's not really anything he didn't have already. Lastly, we have the last few issues of Red Hulk's comic run, which covers the titular character during Doom's rule as Sorcerer Supreme and sees him being captured due to his tactical prowess as a general. We potentially saw Rourke getting stronger than ever during issue 3 after he was hit by a nuke and absorbed the energy, but there was never really an explicit statement for that. However, this run was just announced to have been cancelled, so I'm not really holding out much hope for any more scaling. I hope you all enjoyed this update for everything Hulk. Originally, this was just going to be covering the announcement of the new Infernal Hulk run, but it eventually evolved to what it is now, after deciding to include other developments that are happening within the Hulk mythos. But other than that, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.